Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. The primary season is upon us here in the state of Florida. It's time to get out. This is the last day. Early voting is over. Mail-in ballots, anything relating to primary voting in the state is over after today. Today is the day for you to make your voice heard. It's primary season, folks. So it's decision time. With 77 days actually till the midterms. So we got a lot on the line. I mean, if you don't like the way things are going, now is the time to make your voice heard. And if you do like the way things are going, the same thing still applies to make your voice heard even more. To have, if it isn't broke, don't try to fix it type mentality to keep Democrats in power as far as the House and the Senate. And of course, the Oval Office is not up for grabs until 2024. So here at Soluble, as I said before, our number one stance as far as not going Republican is it's a states' rights party. But we can break it down even more than that. As we all know, Republicans, conservatives in America, offer small government. Now, since the deluge in Kentucky here a couple of weeks ago, when the flooding occurred, it has since hit the great state of Texas. Now, with Republicans, you know that they're hard pressed to utter the two words climate change. But the handwriting is on the wall. This is something unusual. This is something that we haven't seen, at least in my lifetime, as far as from 1967 up to the present. We haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. And when it comes to climate change, I mean, it's all too real. But as I said, with the Republican Party, they are also a deregulation party. That's one of my sticking points as far as small government and deregulation, leaving it to the states. They want to leave it up to the states to control pollution in our waterways, how many parts per million or how it's measured as far as the pollutants that they put into the air. So, our air and water are very vital and essential to our survival here on this planet. But that's the Republican Party, a deregulation party. And I don't think that we can trust them with the environment if they can't look at what's going on now from a realistic point of view, and let's agree to roll up our sleeves and get busy on it. Now, it could be, two different approaches to dealing with the climate change crisis. It could be a Democratic approach and a Republican approach. But as of yet, I haven't seen anything from Republicans, the Republican Party or Republican lawmaker, to put forth their recommendations for climate change. It's a drill, baby, drill party, energy independence, clinging to fossil fuels and the fossil fuel industry for oil, coal, because the lobbyists have paid them off, and they're well paid off. That's number one. And they're afraid of change to convert to renewable energy, cleaner energy sources, number two. It's all about money with this party. So here we are. Primary season is definitely upon us. So it's time to make your voice heard. Excuse me. It's all right here, folks. You're seeing it every day. You're seeing it every day, but more and more now with these every other week, there is a major city in America, major urban area, rural area, what have you, that's being flooded. And this is definitely due to climate change. So that's one of the other sticking points with this party, which is, as I said, a states' right party for small government, to leave it up to the states. So if we can't depend on them to call it what it is, related to climate change or whatever, something around that, how can we trust them to, from a state level, to do the right thing for the air we breathe? It's all about money with this party, folks. It's all about money. Who's got the dollars? Down here in Florida, I went and did my duty on Sunday, cast my votes for the candidates of my choice up and down the ticket. But here, we have a governor that is up for re-election come November. And when it comes to climate change, once again, the COVID crisis, it's all about money. This governor was determined to keep the state of Florida open, no matter what, no matter how many sacrificial lambs that died on a daily basis, no matter how much the numbers went up when it comes to COVID. This governor was willing to lay it all on the line, keep it open, keep schools open, no mask mandates. Very uncooperative when it came to dealing with the pandemic that we had. Why? All in the name of the almighty dollar. Folks, I'm here to tell you, we can't enjoy, spend, or make money when we're sick or dead. Do we have any Republicans who are willing to come forward with even a mere suggestion of what should happen or where the funds come from to help these families who are losing property, who are losing transportation, their vehicles, whose very livelihoods are threatened on a regular basis now with these storms? Can we have any Republican to come forth with suggestions, legislation, anything in the avenue of financial aid, financial help? How do we help these people? You can't have it both ways. But yet this party will try to have it both ways. So it's important that we get out here and vote. It's important that we get out here and vote. The MAGA rights are alive and well still. We voted their leader out. We voted him out. But the movement hasn't died. Trumpism is alive and well in America. So here we are. As I said, 77 days from the midterms, and today is election day here in the great state of Florida. Make your voices heard. And, as I said, the evidence is right there in your face. I mean, it's not something you have to really dig or do a lot of research for. We have a party here that's for a strong military. But when our vets are returning home, when our vets need them the most, are they doing everything that they can to help these vets? How much do they really care about the vets? Because that's where it ends. It starts with a foreign war or some tour of duty in a foreign land. And, these are very trying, traumatizing situations to see children caught up in war, to see people blown to bits, to see your comrades killed right before your very eyes, right in front of you. And that's where it begins, with soldiers on the front lines defending freedom. Okay, a strong military also should include, when these boys come back home, what do they need? Because they are actually the last line of defense for democracy, for the republic. So they're just as deserving at that time, probably even more so, because they put it all on the line, except for making the ultimate sacrifice, which wasn't God's intention. But when they make it home, by the grace of God, what then? This is a party that's for a strong military. So check it. Check out how these conflicts can be started, how a Republican president loves to come in and wag the dog and, go and go to a foreign country and just, flex American military might, flex American muscle when it comes to militarized things. This party loves to do that. So the choice should be clear. Right now in America, the Democratic Party is the last line of defense for democracy as we know it. The candidates that are coming out now, these are Trump acolytes, and they want to be just like Trump. They want to be just like Trump. And the evidence is right there clear. Here is Miss Hageman, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She defeats Liz Cheney in the primaries and immediately comes out with falsehoods that there was no call to concede. She didn't get a congratulatory concession call from Liz Cheney. This is evidence of Trumpism. So this is a monkey see, monkey do thing here. And as I've said before, think about it. The truth is dead with the Republican Party. If it's not, then why vote Congresswoman Cheney out of office? A long-standing servant, a long-standing lawmaker when it comes to democracy. And here at Soluble, we'll probably never agree with Liz Cheney's politics. We have very little common ground politically. But right is right, no matter what party you're affiliated with. So the Congresswoman stands up for the truth. Stands up for the truth. And yet she's defeated. She's voted out. So it's safe to say, and if anyone begs to differ, we welcome any comment or feedback. But it's safe to say that the Republican, only lies can stand in the Republican Party. They stand for half-truths, falsehoods, alternative facts. This is not what we need for the Republic. This is not what we need for the Republic. We have the 45th president to have government watchdog agencies, government agencies like the FBI working overtime, working at the pace that they're working to try to thwart anything that the 45th president has done or is trying to do is what they should be doing with foreign adversaries, not with a past American president, not with a president from an administration from days gone by. But that's what's happening. They're having to work at a fever pitch, a fever pace, running around all over the country, looking for documents, highly classified documents, by the way, highly classified documents that are being stored in some storage room, half secure at Mar-a-Lago. And this is where the Republican Party is at. This is where the MAGA-rights and the Trumpism is at in America. Falsehoods, lies. So here we have it, as I said, states' rights, deregulation, strong military with no proper support for veterans, a strong police force, law and order party. Not since the January 6th riots. Not since the January 6th riots. You can't play both sides of the fence here. You can, but the American voter, hey, it's up to you to see it clearly. To see it clearly. And don't be deceived. If you're investigating Hillary Clinton, Hunter Biden, or anything that QAnon, this so-called deep state, this so-called pedophile ring that is operating in a pizza shop in D.C., if the FBI is investigating these things, running around looking for leads on things that are coming to nothing but a dead end once the evidence all pans out, there's nothing there. And if it is something there, then let Hillary Clinton have a day in court. But this is where the Republican Party is at. It's all in the playbook. Go into it. Propaganda. False assertions. And the FBI needs to look into these things. They do. They find nothing. A great job by the FBI. A great patriotic American institution. Okay, the same patriotic great institution investigates the former president. Now it's all of a sudden it's defunding the FBI. What hypocrisy? What hypocrisy? But as I said, it's in the playbook. You just have to go in and read it and decide if this is what you want representing you in the form of American government. And if not, you have to vote. You have to vote. To Negroes in America, as I've said before, and I'll always stand by on this broadcast, when we go out in large numbers, we have the power to make change for the better for Negroes in America. It's not going to change without the vote. And you have to understand that that's where your true power lies at. Because after the election of 2020, the Republicans went to work hard, even harder, in an attempt to gerrymander, redistrict, change voting laws. So you have to be able to ask yourself and tell yourself the answer, both that, hey, this must be a way for me to move the needle to a seriously better way of life for me as a Negro in America. We've seen evidence of how this is a myth that should be put to permanent rest now. That my vote doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I vote. They're going to do what they want to do anyway. We've seen evidence of it. 45 is gone. There was no second term. He wasn't worthy of another 4 years because democracy as we know it would have possibly vanished. They rocked the boat here in Kansas a couple of weeks ago and rose up against the destruction or the tearing down of Roe versus Wade and sent a strong message to lawmakers that women want to have the right to choose what's best for their bodies. The women want to have the right to make the medical decisions that they feel is best for their bodies. They changed it. They withstood the Supreme Court decision and voted the will of the people, and the will of the people has prevailed in Kansas. So those are two examples of how when you go out and vote in large numbers, you can change things. The choice is clear. If we had a good independent candidate, then we would let the chips fall where they may. Let the best man win. Let's listen to their policies, their ideals for a better America. But right now, as we sit here at Soluble, looking for a solution, we feel as if the best option for America is Democrats in power. We haven't seen them lying to the extent. We haven't seen anyone come into the Democratic Party and threaten democracy and be a threat to the Republic, as we've seen with the previous administration. All this is from the Republican Party. We haven't had double impeachments from a Democratic president. We haven't had insurrections threatening peaceful and fair elections. We haven't had it from a Democratic administration. We haven't had it from a Democratic lawmaker. We haven't had that from a Democratic party. We haven't ever had a scandal to the degree of Watergate from the Democratic Party. So the examples are abundant. The evidence is right there, right in your face to see. And by no means do we here at Soluble feel as though the Democrats are the total saving grace. But we can agree to disagree with this party for the sake of trying to find common ground. This is the party that we can do it with. Not a party that covers the truth. Rather have lawmakers in office, in positions of power, that will promote lies from the top. Have lawmakers in office who are in denial about free and fair elections, mostly because, even though it's unsaid, that's the extent that they are going to as sore losers. As a party who can't make the case It may turn out to be where it's a party of, well, we can't make the case, let's pick up the gun. That remains to be seen. And it's a very real and active threat based on FBI assessments, reports that they put out. It's a very real possibility. So, be that as it may, we can't be intimidated. We can't be fearful. We have to still go out and do what's best for democracy's sake. We have to go out and do what's best for democracy's sake. And these are the stark contrast between the two parties. This is the stark contrast in political, ideological beliefs of what's best for this country. And, here at Soluble, as we try to find a solution, we can't deal in half truths. And oftentimes the truth, if it hurts, then it is what it is. You'll be in pain. But we try our best to deal with the truth, especially with the party that we're backing, which is the Democratic Party. Has the president done a great deal of good for the country, for the middle class? Yes. But is there still more work to do? Of course. And as I've said, as far as the crime bill of the 90s that had mass incarceration for Negroes in America, you have to get involved. Just like I've chosen to do a podcast, you have to get involved. But trust and believe, when you do get involved through phone calls, through podcasts, through writing your lawmakers, or however you choose to get involved, you're dealing with a party of people who will listen. You're dealing with a party of people who will listen because they realize more than Republicans that we voted them in and we can most definitely vote them out. And, in all honesty, this is where we're at, folks. This is where we're at. The Republican Party feels as if the country will go to hell in a handbasket if there's no one running the head of government except for a Caucasian male. And nothing could be further from the truth. We respect and understand, their concerns, but there's no basis. It's not rooted in no basis for belief. It's not rooted in no example. I mean, we've had the first African-American president. Although President Clinton thought he was, we've since elected a true first African-American president. And the country was fine. Democracy continued to function. But, let's just put it out there. So the choice is clear. The choice is clear. It's your choice. Here you have a party, as I said, where they're pretty much primarily concerned for them is Caucasian rule. And that's what's best for America. Even if the Caucasian that's ruling is not the best man for the job. Case in point, Donald J. Trump. But that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And they're afraid. They're scared as you know what, that as time goes by, more and more progress is being made, that they will have very little chance of making the case. Well, what I would suggest here at Soluble, what we would suggest is to reframe the narrative. Can you reinvent yourself when you see that you've come to the end of the road? But that's where it's at, ladies and gentlemen. The Democratic Party is for the melting pot on a whole. The Republican Party is for Caucasian first, and then whatever scraps that is left over or whatever's left over, then the rest of the so-called minorities fight for it, grapple over it, struggle to attain. And that's pretty much where it's at. So the choice is clear. The choice is clear. Here you have environmental after environmental disaster. The storms are coming on a regular basis. The West Coast is drying up. Lake Mead is on the verge of shutting down. or the dam that it powers from Lake Mead or the Colorado River or whatever is in danger of dropping another 100 or so feet and disrupting electricity flow. It's getting serious, folks. And meanwhile, in the meantime, while all this is happening and being threatened, you don't see the Republicans come out with a plan for climate change. You don't see them come out with a plan for climate change. It's like they don't get it. They don't get it. And at the same time, they're the party seems to be, they'll say something with smooth words, but at the end of the day, when you look at it, it's a party of do nothing, know nothing. You can't be you can't be against climate change, continue to want to produce fossil fuels, but when these storms are coming on a frequency that we haven't seen in the last 50 to 100 years, you don't say anything either. You sit on your hands at the same time and don't say anything. The choice is clear, folks. The choice is clear. And as I've said, for Negroes in America, it's now or never for us. You have to come out and vote. This is the way, this is the number one way to make the system work better for us, to let your voice be heard on election day. This is the number one way. We have to rock the vote. It's just that important. And if you come out in large numbers, you will make the difference. We had a serious event occur in the summer of 2020 with the death of George Floyd. Just total blatant regard for human life. Let's leave race out of it for the moment. A total blatant disregard for human life. And the best thing that we can get out of it, the best thing that the Republicans could summarize after watching for themselves was, number one, centered around a talking point that it wasn't the knee that the officer had on George Floyd's neck. He was under the influence of drugs. They're rallying to that. So you have to vote them out. You have to come out on the strength of the total disregard that they have for Black life. But this is not a racist party. They're rallying around the ideology that the knee on the officer's knee on George Floyd's neck wasn't what was responsible or caused his death. It was the fact that he was under the influence of drugs. That's their belief. Even though we've seen different. And when you see different and react accordingly, some people frustrated, fed up, they're angry, they've had enough because it's historical. And when you've seen enough and you're fed up and you decide to take a stand and try to do something about it positive, then the next thing you get from them is the woke mob. Not a woke group of Americans. We can deal with the term woke because that's just what it did. It woke people up to the fact that this has been going on far too long and we need to do something about the double standard of policing in America, where it's oftentimes said that they're there to serve and protect. But Negroes in America, in the vast majority of our neighborhoods and our encounters, we know that we're being served with disrespect. But yet and still, that's all you can get. The second thing you can get that the Republicans are rallying around is a woke mob. A woke mob. If the FBI puts out a report that it's not actually ordinary, everyday American citizens who are setting buildings on fire, looting, breaking windows. These are extremists in the crowd who blended in hopes of starting a race war, of stirring up something larger scale. Because in their heart and mind, they feel that that's the best way for them to re-level the playing field, to even out the numbers, to do the thing that they can do so that they can win elections. Is to possibly physically attack and kill off Negroes. But yet and still, while the FBI is putting out these reports that this is what's in the crowd, this is what's sparking the violence, this is where the lawlessness versus peaceful protests are coming in at, the Republicans still stick to the false talking point because that's where they're stuck at. That's how deeply rooted they are in racism. Regardless of what the FBI is putting out in their reports, this is a woke mob, and it has to be stopped. And they're for the police. They're not for defunding the police. We're going to be a law enforcement party. We're not going to defund the police. But yet the head of the party causes an insurrection on January the 6th. Capitol police officers are killed, wounded. And not one time do you hear the head of the party say anything in regards to Officer Sitnick or the other officer who probably went through such a stressful time that he took his own life. Never once have I heard it. And if you have, we hear we welcome evidence. Send us the video, send us the news clip, send us the feed, hear the soluble. And we would beg to differ until then. But this is the party of law enforcement. So the primary season is here. The primary season is here. You don't need me here at Soluble alone to lay it all out for you. You see it. You see it. You've seen a president serve one term, yet he seats 3 Supreme Court justices. There's something amiss here. But we're not going to do revisionist history. As far as moving forward, we have to vote. We have to vote. Because there doesn't seem to be a shred of integrity in some of the leading Republican lawmakers out here. There doesn't seem to be a shred of integrity. Congresswoman Cheney, Congressman Kinzinger, Senator Romney, they're the last of a dying breed on the Republican side of the aisle. You just had a Republican lawmaker switch in the state of Colorado. Look it up. I think his last name is Priola or something of that nature. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, but he just switched parties in the state Colorado state legislature. Follow his lead. Follow his example. Because the choice is clear. The choice is clear. If we keep Republicans in office, or if we don't vote Republicans out of office, if we don't go out in large droves and vote them out of office, then these investigations, these inquiries, they're just going to continue. And they're sucking the life out of the American financial system as far as taxpayers having to spend money for these investigations. And the business of the people is not being taken care of. That's costly. It adds up. And it will continue to add up. Because the Republican Party, not based on what I'm saying here at Soluble, it's what I'm seeing. It's what I'm seeing them do. They're willing to pull out all the stops to keep it up under the rug. They're willing to try to do anything to conceal it. On January the 6th, the president needs to be held responsible. Oh, this is terrible. The president has to say something. This was on the president. This happened. And then soon as a few days, weeks pass, everything changes. Everything goes back to Trumpism. So it's not necessarily based on what I'm saying. I'm only doing my best to articulate what I'm actually seeing to you, the American people, so that you can make a clear choice. Here we are. Storms every other week due to climate change. And Republicans refuse to present a plan, to put a plan forth for the use of renewable energy sources. How to get renewable energy sources going here in America. It's all about money. It's all about money. And that's one of the number one reasons why they won't come forth and do what's best for America and the planet at large. So, envision water being let out of a tub and a little whirlpool that forms right there as the water goes down the drain. That's where we're at with the Republican Party. There's still plenty of water left for democracy, for the Republic, but it's swirling. When we put Republicans in office, it starts to swirl a little faster. And if the water is alive, it's sucking it out of us a little faster. Those are the facts, folks. Those are the facts. A strong military, law and order party, deregulation, low taxes, or to paying no taxes. And this is it. This is it. These investigations are not witch hunts. They're not hoaxes. It's what the previous president has caused to happen with different institutions that are part of the system of checks and balances that keeps law and order, that keeps integrity in the system, that takes cheating out, which may cause an upheaval on Wall Street, that may cause stocks to tumble, or the American financial system to begin to crack or crumble. This is what these institutions are doing. And they're having to work double time in a lot of areas since the previous president came into power. When you love your country, when you truly love your country, you don't do these type of things. You don't overwork law enforcement organizations. You don't overwork committees that are there to investigate just in case something happens. They're just there as a part of the checks and balances in the system that we need in the system. For people like 45, for people like the previous president. But when you love the country, when you're the head of said country, you don't do these type of things. You don't take the country through these type of changes. You don't do things to undermine or weaken democracy. But yet, you see it. You see it. Instead of Congresswoman Cheney being highly esteemed and highly assailed in the Republican Party, she's now like a pariah. Instead of Congresswoman Cheney being spoke about in wide circles as far as being a future president contender, she's being pushed to the wayside. They're attempting to bury her. This is a dark day and time in America. This is a dark day and time in America, ladies and gentlemen. And these are the two parties that you have to choose from. One party, the Democratic Party, as I said, by no means perfect, by no means getting it right 100% of the time. But, and this is a big but for democracy's sake. This is a big but for democracy's sake. It is important. You can reach out and they'll listen. They'll work with their constituents. They'll hold their constituents accountable when they're wrong. And you don't see that in the Republican Party. There was a time when you saw that, when they would hold their constituents responsible, hold them accountable, stand up for the truth. One of the last examples was the late Senator McCain, when he was on the campaign trail against then candidate Obama, when he corrected the lady at one of his rallies. He said, no ma'am, no ma'am. He's a decent human being, but he's just somebody who I happen to disagree with politically. That's gone. And if those days are not over, then it's time for the Republican Party to put up or shut up. And right now, it seems as if those days are over because, as I said, Congresswoman Cheney has been pushed to the wayside now. Why? Simply for standing up to the truth. Simply for standing up to the truth. So you have a party here in the Republican Party who can't take losing. I mean, we would understand if they can't stand losing. You hardly ever going to find somebody who is a happy loser. So we can understand it if they can't stand to lose. But here we are dealing with a party that can't take losing. It's two totally different things there. It's two totally different things. Here we are dealing with a party who can't take losing. And they'll pull out all the stops from what it seems now. And it's a very serious threat to democracy. It's a very clear and present danger. Because the Republican Party wants to go, seemingly, they want to go the other way. Instead of making the case to the American voter, they want to resort to violence. And violence seems to be acceptable within the party. You have leaders. You have notable Republicans who just refuse to come out and straight up condemn the actions of his constituents, of some of his fellow lawmakers. Now, you take a fine, upstanding institution like the FBI. Since they raided Trump, as I said, it's defund the FBI, kill FBI members. What credibility did they have? Who orchestrated this? How we should be looking at it as American citizens is not who orchestrated, but why was this necessary? This president is leaving this former president should be leaving a trail of tears for his supporters, for his one-time supporters in the first 4 years. Even the ones who refused to vote for him a second time around. And as I said before, you don't get this with Democratic leaders. We haven't seen this on our side of the aisle from our party. We haven't seen scandal, corruption at this level. We haven't seen it. We haven't seen it. Classified, highly sensitive documents that there's no respect for. And here we are with the previous president having all these boxes of material. And by all accounts, from his previous administration officials, he didn't like to read intelligence reports. He didn't like to go through the briefings. They had to put pictures in with it and flattering things about him to make him even pay attention to it. As if he's some 10-year-old child. That they would have to do this for a man who loves his country, just to pay attention to the intelligence briefings to see where threats were at in the world against America. At what level were those threats? To get him to pay attention and read and focus in on this, you had to put in pictures, flattering things about him. So the choice is clear. A party that welcomes lies, scandal, corruption, fear-mongering, stacking the Supreme Court through underhanded means, I mean, there seems to be no new low now for this party when it comes to where do you stand when it comes for political debate, for great political discussion in order to, if not make law through having the outright numbers, having to compromise with your fellow politicians across the aisle. It seems to be dead with this party. So this is where we're at. We have Trump acolytes running all over the country. So it's kind of shockingly weird that these candidates that are running for office don't see that Trumpism has been voted out, even though it's not dead within the party, that it's been voted out. Right? They're so stuck on it, they're so entrenched in it that they can't help it. It's Trumpism or bust. It's all they know now. It's like they become a product of that environment. These Trump acolytes are here. Herschel Walker, Dr. Oz. They're here running for office without a clue. Without a clue. As I've said before. And it's, this has nothing to do with party. This is just a stance that we take here at Soluble. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Herschel Walker doesn't know beans about politics. I'm not saying that he needs to go to the University of Georgia and apply for a job as assistant running back coach if the main position has been filled. I'm not saying that that's all he's capable of. But as far as politics, I mean, it's got to be shockingly frightening. And when you see that, it should make you want to go to the polls. He's looking at the last bill, the Inflation Reduction Act. He's looking at this bill and he doesn't understand the need to plant trees in certain spaces that the administration has come up with through dealing with conservationists, climate change experts on how to stem the tide, on how to slow it down. He hasn't a clue because this is the party they don't believe in. China takes our good air and they give us their bad air. So said by candidate Walker. Nothing could be more ridiculous. Nothing could be more ridiculous. By Herschel's account, there's not a God in heaven. God is in China. The Chinese are gods. They are the ones who control the steering currents. They have the power to take air from us and give us their air. These are the kind of candidates that are being produced by the Republican Party who will be running for office in November in the midterms. The power is in the hands of the people always, not sometimes, but always. And as I've said to Negroes in America, you have to understand that. That's where the true power for change lies. You protest. You file lawsuits. But the true change that you're looking for lies in your ability to vote. The true change that you're looking for may require you to mail in a ballot, go early, do absentee every 2 to 4 years. The true change that you're looking for, possibly, certainly, certainly requires you to do this by one of those means: absentee, mail in, early, or going on election day every 2 to 4 years. So if that's too much, then the change that you're seeking, the better life that you're seeking here in America, the fairness and equality that you're seeking, we've come a long way, but we still got a long way to go that you're seeking lies in your ability, in your willingness to go out and make your voice heard every 2 to 4 years. There's a stark contrast here. There's a stark contrast here. In order to save the republic, we have to send a message now. We have to send a message. Keep Democrats in power. And this, for one, will help Republican lawmakers in the country to understand that we have to come back down to earth. We have to get away from Trumpism. We have to go back to a time where our stances wasn't so rudely put out there. That the beliefs that we champion weren't violated. The beliefs that we champion can be carried out or eventually realized with us winning elections if we go back to truthfully communicating with the American people. Not, for example, saying that this is an election year and we should wait till after the election and let the people's voice be heard. And then doing something totally different when the shoe is on the other foot. We can make the change. We can bring this thing back from the brink, from the edge. But the best way to do it, the most peaceful way to do it now is to go out and vote. And then what happens after that, we can't control it. But if you're looking for fairness, equality, change in the way things are done, the duality in treatment, the duality in housing, the duality in jobs. There's a lot of dual purpose going on with American institutions. For Negroes in America, as I said, your first line of defense is the vote. You have the numbers when you exercise them accordingly. You have the numbers when you exercise them accordingly. The Magarites are some 70-something million strong, as we saw in the 2020 election. But they're still in the minority. Now the question is, here 2 years later, can we keep them in the minority? Forget the spin. Pay no attention to the spin. Don't get distracted. The hands of political power, they turn slow. As evidenced by, okay, we had high gas prices at the beginning of the year. Usually, oftentimes, gas prices do increase in the summer, whether it's a Republican or a Democratic administration. But we had seemed to be abnormally high gas prices. But now they have slowly begun to come downward. That's because Democrats have tinkered over here. They've turned a few levers over there. They've talked to foreign producers over there. They've came back home and talked to domestic drillers here. And through tinkering, turning gadgets, communicating, speaking truth to power, listening, they found a way to eventually bring the prices down. And that's how democracy should work. To do the people in power, we send them to Washington to do whatever it takes to make our lives better than what they already are. If we're doing great, you keep us on this path. God forbid something happens that has worldwide consequences that's not directly in the United States control. But we send our leaders to Washington to do just that. Make our everyday lives better. And strive to make them better and better. So here we are. We're coming up to the midterms. We're coming up to the middle of Joe Biden's term in office. We're coming up into the middle of the presidential term. We're halfway there. We're halfway through 4 years. It came out. He came out stumbling. The administration came out on wobbly legs. Oftentimes because there was no one there to cooperate from the previous administration to pass on the information they had about COVID or the disinformation they had about COVID. But since 2020 up to now, to the halfway point, things have, if they were bad, they have progressively gotten better. They have progressively gotten better. The president needs to listen, which is really a breath of fresh air based on the previous president, who was a know-it-all, who knew more about foreign affairs than the generals did. But the current Democratic president needs to listen and apply what he's heard from the experts, and everything will be fine. Another notable difference. Another notable difference. We have a president in office now who will listen, who will take all the advice he's gotten or that he's gathered and put it all together to try to come up with the way he can best assess to do what's best for the American people. He will listen. Another notable difference. As I said, another notable difference. A party who will strive to do what's best for the American people, whether you're millionaires, billionaires, or everyday working class Americans, versus a party where the bottom line is profit, financial gain. As I said, have you seen evidence here in Florida with Governor DeSantis and how he handled the COVID pandemic? Keep it open. No mask mandates. Falsify the numbers. Fire anybody who disagrees with what I'm saying. This party has lost its legs when it comes to big government taking over your lives. Because here we have government at the state level trying to mandate, trying to rule, firing elected officials, writing laws that the Supreme Court or the state Supreme Court is throwing out as unconstitutional because they violate freedom of speech. But if the governor could bring it back on appeal, maybe tweak it just a little bit, he'll do so. This is the Republican Party. This is where the Republican Party stands now. If you're more aware of what's going on, you're more engaged, and you're willing to take that awareness and engagement and put it forth in a positive way to either run for office, form a petition, or whatever, you're still a woke mob. You're doing everything that the Constitution allows you to do under our form of government. Forming a petition, running for office, going and talking to your local leaders at city council meetings, attending rallies and asking questions. You're a woke mob. This is the best that the Republican Party can do for a so-called minority in America, is to go the other way. But as soon as the shoe is on the other foot, kill FBI agents, defund the FBI. This party stands whichever way the wind blows them. And if not, they have the arena, the ball's in their court. But you, the American voter, how much more do you need to see? It's buyer beware. So, in closing, this is where we are. It's primary season. The candidates are out there. Pay attention to their stance, their policy beliefs. Look at the Republican Party not for what you want it to be or wish it could be, but for what it is. Look at the Democratic Party, not for what you want it to be or wish it to be, but for what it is. But our position here at Soluble is that the Democratic Party is a party that is reachable, that will listen, that will work with its constituents and all others in America. You don't see President Biden only going to rallies where there's strong Democratic supporters only. He's willing to go out and talk to the American people whenever and wherever the opportunity presents itself. He went to Kentucky, a red state. They were flooded out. He went to Kentucky, a red state, and had to engage with people who it's safe to say probably didn't vote for him, but he went there. This is the Democratic Party. So the choice is clear. The choice is clear. Whether you want to be in denial or not, the choice is clear. You see what's going on. You see what's being said, and you see what's being done on both sides of the aisle. On both sides of the aisle. Democrats, Democratic voters, when we see our leaders not representing, not doing what they promised to do on the campaign trail, now that they're in office, we, the people, have to hold them accountable. And we have the power to do that in various ways. Most powerful at the ballot box. But we have ways to reach out and make change. So in closing, we want to encourage you to get engaged. As I said, look at the candidates, look at their stance on the issues, and make an informed decision. Because voting is truly going to make a difference. It's truly going to make a difference in which way the republic goes. Will the republic stay on strong legs, or will it weeble and wobble and fall down? This is what's at stake now when you go into the ballot box. So happy voting, get informed, stay informed, and be prepared to make that decision when the time comes. 77 days until the midterms. Get engaged and be ready to rock the vote, to keep the party that's in power now, the Democratic Party, in power. This is Soluble. Until we meet again, we're signing off. We'd like to thank you for joining us. Any comments, questions, we welcome any feedback, anything that we might be missing that we can add. But at the end of the day, we're here to try and come up with a solution since January 6th, since the big lie. We took it upon ourselves to get engaged and to try to come up with a solution to the problem, a peaceful solution, not one that erupts into physical confrontations. This is Soluble, signing off until we debate again, until we politically discuss again. This is Soluble saying good night.